You've been seeing colors wrong your whole life. How our vision tricks us, under what conditions we can see the real colors on monitors, why this matters so much when creating content, and what your eye color has to do with it. I'm a practicing colorist, and today I'll share my thoughts on all of this with you. Enjoy watching. Did you know that our vision perceives light information much better than color? It is commonly believed that humans can see 20 stops of light or even more, but in reality that's not entirely true, because our vision has the ability to adapt to lighting over time. Simply put, without adaptation, we only see about 10-14 stops of light, but actually, right now that doesn't even matter. What matters is that in our puzzle, vision is only one of the elements. We also have the equipment we use to record, and for example the monitor we use to view the image. Even professional modern cameras sometimes can't capture as much light as the human eye can see, and monitors, even the most professional $40K solutions, can only get close to human vision values but never exceed them. So what do we have? Already, just with light, we face the impossibility of fully capturing or displaying its entire range. And on top of that, we also have color. To put it briefly, we perceive colors really poorly. We fall for different illusions released to colors. Some colors we see better, like green for example, and some worse, like blue. And it would seem we already have a very difficult task in front of us, to see colors and light correctly, passing through all these stages, such as our vision, the device that displays the information, and the device that records it. But there is still one more important element in our question, and that is conditions. You see, if our task is to see colors correctly, then just looking at a good monitor is not enough. The conditions in which we observe the image are also important. If you shine a lamp on the monitor, the colors and light will already be perceived differently. That's why it's important to follow proper working conditions. Since I'm a colorist, I'll tell you about the conditions under which I see colors close to ideal. First of all, it's a dark room. No light source should fall on the monitor. Next, the room should be in neutral colors. Behind the monitor, there must be a gray wall close to 18% gray values. And behind the monitor, there should be a neutral backlight at 6500 Kelvin. This helps the eyes get less tired from the monitor and see contrast correctly. And just imagine, only under such conditions can we more or less see colors correctly. Yes, still not perfectly, because conditions also include our vision, which, as you remember, is very capricious. For example, it's better to work with color in the morning, after a full rest, because in the evening our vision is slightly worse than when we just woke up. But what is the main problem of our vision? I suggest we discuss that. Our vision is imperfect, and unfortunately that's a big problem. If we can choose the right equipment and conditions, then with vision, sadly, there's nothing we can do. But what is the main issue? The problem is that in our puzzle, we simply cannot account for the specifics of every person's vision. In theory, two different people under the same conditions will still see colors a little differently. And I'm not talking about the influence of eye color on how we perceive colors, which, by the way, is minimal or doesn't exist at all. All that's left for us is to completely ignore the individual features of vision and work only with the sources of capturing or displaying information, such as cameras and monitors, as sad as that may sound. By the way, when working with color, it's necessary to take breaks regularly. Don't stay stuck on one frame for too long, and so on. All because of our vision's ability to adapt, both to light and to color. This feature may help us in daily life, but definitely not in content work. But what does help is our equipment. And trust me, this is a very important and fascinating chapter. But before that, I wanna say something. If you create content for the internet, shoot music videos, films, commercials, or even social media clips, you can't do without proper color grading. Unfortunately, learning to grade correctly on your own is quite difficult. That's why I offer you my services. I'm a colorist, and I recently left a studio to work as a freelancer. Don't neglect color grading in your projects. Let's work together. The link to my Instagram is in the description. We've already understood that proper equipment plays a very important role in color perception, and if you work with content, I strongly recommend that you carefully study the question of choosing the right monitor. I don't think I need to explain to you that if you work with online content, then your color profile should be either Rec 709 or sRGB. Between them, in fact, there isn't much difference. The gamma should be 2.2 or 2.4, depending on the task, and of course, you should use professional solutions, not gaming monitors. Will all of this help us see the correct colors? Actually, no. It's impossible to achieve 100% accurate colors. Even if you calibrate to identical monitor models the same way, there will still be a small difference in color. But our goal is not to see colors 100% perfectly, because that's simply impossible. What we can do is minimize the deviation from strict standards. Then maybe we can say that we see colors correctly on our monitors. Not perfectly, since we still can't control vision itself, but correctly. Again, considering all the conditions. By the way, I live in one of those regions where you can often find devices with the wrong white point. And I mean, it's drastically different. In this case, the correct white point is considered to be 9300 Kelvin, not 6500 Kelvin, as in modern standards. And just imagine, people who have looked at monitors with such a white point have literally been seeing colors incorrectly their whole life. But in fact, you might be in the same situation. Do you know what 16 to 235 and 0 to 255 are? That's the so-called input range. Everyone says that the most accurate and proper one is 0 to 255. And yeah, that's true, but not on all devices and not through all types of connections. For example, my MacBook can't correctly display these values through an HDMI port. Because of this, when calibrating a monitor, artifacts appear in contrast and color. I recommend you check which values your devices handle better. And you see, what seemed like a simple need to see colors correctly turns out to be very complicated. And we still haven't touched the last piece of our puzzle. When our task is to see colors as accurately as possible, we face the problem of color profile incompatibility. Every professional camera has its own color profiles and a range in which it captures colors. These ranges are quite wide, but still nowhere near human vision. And yet, because of the data inside them, it's much harder to compress everything into the narrow Rec 709 digital profile when working with video. But this has to be done. That's the standard today. So why not just shoot everything in Rec 709 right away? It's because in a wider color profile, it's much easier to work with color. There is more flexibility, and the image will break down less. But eventually, you still have to convert the color profile into a specific standard. The problem with all camera colors profiles is that each requires its own approach. Every camera, you could say, sees colors differently, and without additional tools. It's very hard to understand how to work with one camera or another. That's a topic for a separate video, so don't forget to subscribe, so you won't miss it. Right now, we live in a time where it's important to see colors correctly, especially if we create content. You see, color is not just about beauty or perception. Color and light are the most important, though not always obvious, storytelling tools. Through color, you can guide the viewer's attention by choosing the right colors. You can increase product sales through the psychology of color. You can also lead the viewer to certain thoughts or actions. I'll make a separate video about this in the future, but for now, I wanna say, even if we can't always see colors correctly because of our capricious vision, we can create conditions where color mismatches are minimal. That was the main point of today's video. We have never seen colors correctly, and we probably never will. But we must do everything possible to make our content better. I hope this video brightened your day. Buy my color grading, and bye-bye!